Great. And so, welcome everyone once again. Finally, our host is here, and I'm really excited. This webinar, like I said before, it's worth the wait. Um, we know that it was postponed a few weeks ago, and Dr. Mary was very kind enough to reschedule us, and I'm really, really honored to be here. I just wanted to give a quick introduction, and if you follow me on social media or you follow our pages, I made and posted an introduction for her, but we are so honored to welcome Dr. Mary Kay Holmes, a woman of many firsts and a force to be reckoned with. If you have never encountered her, this is your chance and an opportunity to listen to her, to hear from her heart as she speaks today. But she's a corporate tax attorney, and she's a four times best-selling author. She's a motivational speaker. She runs a podcast. She's a magazine publisher, and she's also a certified coach. And throughout her life, she has shattered a lot of barriers, and she didn't even stop there, but she made sure that through her influence, she paved ways for many people. And beyond her remarkable achievements, Dr. Holmes is also a passionate advocate for human trafficking survivors, using her voice and her platform to raise awareness, inspire change, and empower those affected. And she speaks from her heart about real life issues that impact and affect women around the world, while addressing challenges such as resilience, healing, and empowerment with authenticity and compassion. She's more than just a speaker. She's a trailblazer. She's a powerhouse of wisdom and a living testament of resilience and success. Her journey and insights will inspire you, will equip you, and will empower you like never before. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dr. Mary Kay Holmes, and we're really excited to hear from you. And I'll just keep quiet and leave the platform for you.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. Like I've said before, I'm truly honored to be able to do this because this is something that I'm passionate about. It's something that's near and dear to my heart because of my own experience. I want to bring light and bring awareness to this issue because I know you guys just heard a lot about me, but even though I met my trafficker at 15 years old, I didn't know what human trafficking was until I was 36. And so when the light bulb went off for me, I was literally sitting in my international human rights class in law school. And when I was going through the different elements of human trafficking and I'm reading it, I'm realizing, wait a minute, this happened to me, that happened to me, that happened to me. Oh my goodness. I know I was abused. I know I was controlled. I know I was manipulated. I knew I was in a relationship that was controlling. I knew that I was physically and emotionally abused, but I didn't have the language for it. And so a lot of times human trafficking gets mislabeled or misidentified. And so although it is also, some of the situations are also domestic violence, gender-based violence, and things like that, they also can be human trafficking as well. And so I've been committed to shedding light on this issue and bringing hope because I want people to know that there's hope beyond all the trauma. There's hope beyond all of the things that life can throw at you. And so just a little bit more about my background in just a moment. First, I want to thank everybody for joining and attending and taking this topic seriously. Thank you to the hosts and the organizations behind this. I want to say, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity, and I just want to acknowledge the, Malawi and U.S. collaboration and Canada as well, right? So yeah, so thank you all for joining forces and making this everything that it needs to be. And so just I'm going to share my story, but I'm also going to give you an overview of what we're going to deal with. We're going to deal with recognizing the signs. We're going to deal with understanding human trafficking networks. We're going to talk about how to respond safely, and I'll give you some tips and some real life examples of how this all plays out. And so a little bit about me. So you all heard a lot, but I'm going to give you some details of how all of this came about. I was a little girl growing up in a loving environment, around a lot of cousins, a lot of family. But unfortunately, early on, when you're around a lot of family and you have a lot of cousins, a lot of aunts and uncles, you tend to be in an environment where a lot can go unsupervised. Let me just put it that way. And by the time I was as early as I can remember, I just was very aware of my body, my sexuality, because I was molested at a young age. And at the time, I didn't know that what was happening to me was as bad as it was. I thought I was a willing participant. Now, this is someone who's 4, 5, 6 years old. Um, and of course, I didn't know what was going on. All I just knew what was being done to me, and I was being told to keep it a secret. And so early on, this secrecy, this element of, don't talk about what's happening was instilled in me. And so I grew up having these feelings and not knowing how to manage what I was going through. And so I started to act out in different ways, behavioral issues, um, being very into boys and all of that stuff. And so by the time I was 14 years old, I was pregnant. And after that, the next year, I met the man who would later on go on to traffic me. I was 15, he was 36 years old. And so this is a man who's 21 years older than I was. And at that age, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so a lot of times with black and brown girls at that age, what's called the adultification of black girls. And I wrote about this in my book, Trapped in Plain Sight. Shameless plug. I got my book here. And in this book, I talk about the adultification of black girls. And the reason I talk about that is because a lot of times teenage girls or preteens who look like us are often viewed as being more mature than what they are. They're looked at as being more adult. They're looked at as having an awareness about life that is far beyond their years. And although they may look the part, they might have the shape, they might have the figure, they might have the talk, they might have the hair, the lashes, and the makeup. And, some of these girls, especially today, they just look gorgeous. They look like little models. And unfortunately, society views them as being more adult than what they are. And at that age, your brain isn't even fully developed yet. You don't know, like I said, what you don't know. And so at 15, I thought I was mature enough to handle dating this older man. Now, mind you, I didn't know that he was 36. He didn't tell me he was 36. He led me on to believe that he was in his 20s, and he would make me feel like I was just old enough and mature enough. I had the mental capacity to be able to take on this relationship with this older person. But little did I know, he was set on grooming me and developing me into what he wanted me to be for him. And so this is where I didn't realize it was human trafficking. I'm just thinking I'm in a relationship with an older guy. And that's what a lot of girls are experiencing. And that's why I call the book Trapped in Plain Sight, because we see these kind of relationships going on. And I don't even want to call them relationships. They're manipulative tactics used by older people to control someone who is still shapeable and moldable, someone who's still vulnerable. And that's the heart of human trafficking, is that exploitation of vulnerability. And we'll get more into that later. So when I met this man, he had me immediately working for him. And when I say working for him, I'm talking about in the streets hustling. And what I mean by that is he had this game going on where he would gamble and con people out of their money. It wasn't an honest game. It wasn't like gambling in the sense of, you take a chance, you win some money. No, it was a con game. And so I would help him to con people out of their money. Now, mind you, I'm still a teenager. I'm still in high school. I'm going with him to help him do this. And then it escalated into me also helping him to sell drugs and transport drugs. And what happened during that time was I didn't know I was being his drug mule. I didn't realize that I was the shield between him and the federal government, because at the time he was selling what is called kilos of cocaine, pure cocaine, and the street term for it is bricks. And so it's called bricks because it's these huge packages of tightly packed, pure white cocaine. And we would go into New York. We lived in Connecticut at the time. I'm living with my mom because I'm in high school, and we both lived in Connecticut. He would take me into New York to buy these drugs. I would have the distributors, the people who were selling the drugs to him, they would put it into my backpack. I was the one to bring it back into Connecticut, where we lived, and I learned how to make that cocaine into crack. And when we turned it into crack, then I would weigh it out, and it was my job to distribute it to the young boys that were working for him in the streets in New Haven, Connecticut. Many of you may be familiar with Yale University. That's where a lot like Yale University is situated in an area where it's nice, and all of these nice little shops and stores and Ivy League students, and you can go a few blocks and you're right in the hood. So you're right in this area where it's a lot of crime, a lot of violence, a lot of poverty, a lot of homelessness. You can go a few blocks and literally you are in a whole new world. And so that's where we would go to distribute these drugs. And so again, I am just a teenager doing this work for him. And so when I got 7 years later, because I'm going to speed up the story because I really want to get to the part about how all of this was human trafficking, and the light bulb may be going off for many of you, and you're probably connecting the dots. But after years of abuse, years of isolation from my family, 2 children later, and escaping from this lifestyle, after 7 years, I ran right into the arms of a pimp because I hadn't yet healed from this last situation. I got out, I was able to escape, and if you want to know how I escaped, then you got to read the book. But I got out, but I wasn't healed. I didn't know how to live life on my own. I didn't know how to make decisions for myself independently. I didn't know what life looked like outside of being controlled and told what to do, when you can do it, how to dress, how to look, who you can talk to, where you can go, how long you can stay. I was so conditioned to do what someone else was telling me to do. And so it was easy for someone else to come along and exploit that vulnerability. It was easy for another person to come in and be all of the things that I was used to, which was being controlled, being manipulated, being told what to do. And so this person held a debt over my head, this pimp. He got me in debt to him, and then all of a sudden he introduced me to, this is how you can pay me back. You're going to go into strip clubs, you're going to dance, you're going to give me the money, you're only going to be able to have these types of clients. You're going to then take other clients out from the strip club to outside that club. You're going to sleep with them for money, and again, you're going to give me the money. Now, a lot of people, they're very familiar. A lot of you are familiar with prostitution. You're familiar with the world of all of those, like pornography and all of that stuff. But what many people fail to realize is that a lot of these women are not doing this by choice. Yes, there are some sex workers who absolutely choose to do that for money. They choose to do that for a living. However, there are so many women who are trapped in this world, not because they choose to do it, but because they've been forced into it, because they've been exploited into it, because they have a life that they felt there was no other way out, or they were frauded into it, coerced into it. They're being physically abused. Many people that are familiar with the pimp lifestyle, or what we call the pimp game, which is not a game at all, um, they know that a lot of times pimps can be very abusive. Slap, that's where we get the term pimp slap from. It was normalized to believe that it was okay that a man can physically harm a woman to get that woman in line to go out and earn money by selling her body. And what woman in her right mind, what woman truly in control of her own life is going to put her body at risk, put her life at risk, come back with the money from doing this, and give all of that money over to someone else who is just sitting back, just enjoying the fruits of uh, you know, all of her behavior that's putting her at risk, all of the risky behavior. No woman in their right mind. And when I say no woman in the right mind, I say that because these are not women who are operating out of their own volition. They're not thinking that this is something that they want to do. They have been pushed, they've been coerced and forced into this lifestyle. And so that's what happened to me. And eventually, thank God, I was able to get out. Thank God I was able to escape from that life as well. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that story. They don't have that outcome. They don't have the escape opportunity, so to speak. A lot of women get caught up in it. A lot of women die in that situation. A lot of women lose their minds in that situation. A lot of women are locked up or have been imprisoned for prostitution, and their pimp is still out there free exploiting other women. And so there's absolutely an opportunity to also discuss the criminalization of victims of human trafficking, and not just the criminalization in the sense of being put in prison, but a lot of us blame the victims. Many of you may know about the Diddy and Cassie trial that's going on right now. You may be following it. You may be seeing some of the news blurbs or some of the sketches and all of the recaps of what's going on with the testimony. And there's a lot of people who are still blaming Cassie. Why did you stay? It was 11 years. Why didn't you just leave? You could have left at any moment. You must have stayed for the money. You must have stayed for the fame. No, a lot of times these girls, these women are going into situations, they're being manipulated into it. And once you're in, you can physically walk out, but if you are mentally trapped, if you are mentally in bondage, if that person has controlled every aspect of your life, where you live, how your bills are getting paid, your communication with the outside world, your relationships with others, if they're controlling all of this, and then when you look at Cassie, you're looking at a power dynamic. You're looking at someone who had signed her to his label. You're looking at someone who had her career in his hands. So you have this power dynamic. A lot of times, these women, these girls, they are manipulated in their minds. So, yes, there's opportunity to physically leave. There were opportunities for me to physically leave both situations. But because I was mentally trapped, I didn't know how. I didn't know that I could. And as a matter of fact, at times I became so manipulated and so groomed into it, I started to believe that this is what I wanted. I started to believe that this is what I chose. But with the first situation with my first trafficker, I have to continually remind myself, you were just a little girl. You were still a child. And with the second situation with the sex trafficking, I was an unhealed, vulnerable young woman who didn't know that there was another route, that there was another way out, that there was better for me. And so, by the grace of God, I was able to escape both of those situations and go on to regain my self-esteem, to recapture my confidence. I got therapy. I got spiritual counseling. I started to get back into church, going back to my roots of being a Christian and living for God and learning more about myself and seeing myself the way that God saw me, understanding that I had more value and more worth than what I was living up to. I understood my potential. I understood that while I might have been in poverty, I might have been homeless a couple of times, and there's a lot more to my story. I was in prison and had gone through all of these things because I wasn't healed, because I kept making mistakes, kept living life as if I was still in this trapped environment, limiting myself. I didn't know until I got out all of the potential that was waiting for me. So I got back into school. I wound up getting my degree. And once I got my bachelor's degree, I went right into law school. And even though I had all of these issues and all of this trauma and all of these things that had plagued me for years, I mean, that had beat me down, I was determined. I was determined to do what I call outliving the labels because I had so many labels on me: abused, battered, controlled, manipulated, homeless, teen mom, depressed, social anxiety, all of these things that I was battling. I mean, suicidal. I attempted suicide 5 different times because of all of the issues I had with my self-worth. I fought through all of that and I understood I could outlive every label. I could overcome all of the trauma. And education was my key to escape that. I just knew that if I can get an education, I could change my life. If I can get an education, I don't have to depend on men. If I can get an education, I'm not going to be easily manipulated. If I can get an education, it's going to help me to help others. And I can then live from a higher level. And so education was my way out. And I said, when I become a lawyer, I'm going to work in public interest law. I'm going to work in the community. I'm going to help people who can't help themselves. And I had this determination. So in law school, I signed up for the post-conviction innocence clinic, which I was helping people to get their names cleared who were wrongly convicted. And my first client, we were able to get him exonerated after he was fighting for his freedom for 44 years. And that absolutely gave me more push to make a difference. And then I started volunteering for the Courtroom Advocates Project, where I was helping women who were survivors of domestic violence or who were in domestic violence situations and gender-based violence. I was helping them to get petitions, to get restraining orders, and to be able to protect themselves and to get the courts to back them up so that they can get away from the people who were abusing them. And so that was empowering. But God had some plans for me that I did not expect. I did not expect to land in corporate tax law. I thought I would be doing more work like what I just mentioned. But in corporate law, I learned that I can still help from that level as well. Even though right now my 9 to 5, so to speak, does not necessarily seem like it lines up with my passions and my pursuit to bring hope to humanity, but it absolutely does. Because there are too many people out there who are survivors of human trafficking, who are survivors of gender-based violence, who are survivors of childhood sexual assault or molestation, who have gone through different traumas. Maybe you don't fall into any of those categories, so to speak, but whatever you've gone through, I want you to know that there's no limitations. You can outlive even the limitations. While you can outlive the labels, you can also outlive the limitations that we put on ourselves. I limited myself to only working in one type of legal area. I limited myself to only working in one type of field. But God was able to take my mind and expand it. I don't want to say blow my mind anymore because words have power. But God was able to expand my mind and expand my thinking to see life beyond just a trauma-based environment, right? So I can absolutely do both. I can do both. And so now working in corporate law, it's absolutely a privilege. I love it. I enjoy it. I'm a corporate tax lawyer. And as you know, my passion is also to help survivors, to help bring awareness surrounding the issue of human trafficking. So let's get into how all of this ties into recognizing the signs, because you might have picked up on some things that I went through that, okay, there were some red flags there, right? There were absolutely some red flags. I didn't see them. My family might have saw them, but they were ignored. And how you can also recognize these signs and also possibly save a life. So that's the goal here: prevention and protection, and absolutely being able to empower survivors. So also understanding trafficking networks and how to respond when you see something that looks like this could be a human trafficking situation. So with human trafficking, there are three elements. There's the act, there is the means, and there's also the purpose behind it. So with the act, that's what's done. That can be the recruitment, transportation, it can be harboring, et cetera, et cetera. The means is how it's done. That's like threat, coercion, fraud, manipulation. The purpose, that's why it's being done. That's prostitution, sexual exploitation, forced labor, things like that, drug transportation, all of those things. So those are just some examples. It's not all inclusive. There are absolutely more. There are more ways that it can be done, how it can be done, and why it's done. But that's those are some of the highlights. So with me, the act was I was being recruited. I was being groomed by this 36-year-old man when I was just 15. I was being recruited and groomed into a lifestyle that benefited him, which was to make money for him. And yes, there was an element of sex involved. He did gain some benefit from that as well. He was absolutely a pedophile who was sleeping with this underage girl. And the means, how it was done, he used threats, he used coercion, but at first it didn't start off as threats. It didn't start out as physical abuse. What it started out was manipulation. You're so mature. You can't your college level, your intelligence is on like a college level. Other girls couldn't get someone like me, but you did. You're a ride or die chick, painting this picture that I'm this girl who is like almost like this little superstar, dressing me in now these fancy clothes, the latest shoes, getting my hair done on the weekends, and all of these things that coming up in poverty, I was not used to. I was not used to having the latest clothes. I was not used to eating out. I wasn't used to having money in my pocket like that. I went from, making a little bit of money working in a donut shop and now all of a sudden I'm able to buy whatever I want. I was manipulated, I was groomed, and I was just kind of brought into this lifestyle through by the dangling of this carrot, so to speak. So that was how it was done. Why it was done for me, of course, he made money off of me. And of course, the second trafficker, the pimp, he absolutely made money off of me. He absolutely exploited me. But like I said, these are not the only ways this is done, but these are just some examples and then tying it into what happened to me. But there's so many different ways. And then also, let's dispel some myths because a lot of times people hear the word trafficking and they think it has to involve movement, and it doesn't. It does not have to involve movement at all. You can be trapped in plain sight. You can be somewhere around many people. You can be going from place to place, freely moving, freely able to go to school like I did, freely able to go to work like I was able to do eventually, freely able to go visit your family like I was able to do eventually. And there were times when I was not allowed to leave the house. There were times when I wasn't allowed to talk to my family, contact them. And then there were other times when I was allowed to go, but only after I had been told that I was, that there were consequences, that if I did anything that would expose him, that would bring any awareness to what I was going through, basically. And in other words, I wasn't allowed to talk about what was going on in the house. So yeah, there were threats and there were veiled threats. And what I mean by that is there were times when it wasn't just, I'm going to punch you in the face or I'm going to choke you or I'm going to hurt you. It was more like, the last person that did this to me, the last person that ran their mouth, the last person that talked, I hired someone to break their legs. It was things like that, threats that were indirect that let me know this person could do harm to me if I didn't do what they wanted. So how do we recognize? Oh, let me give you some more myths. I'm sorry. So it doesn't have to involve movement.
Involve movement.
It does
It,
not
it does not
doesn't mean, oh, I'm sorry, there's an echo. Do you guys hear that? Oh, it's gone. Okay, great. So it doesn't have to involve consent. I mean, excuse me, it can involve consent. So a lot of times people think, well, the person consented to it, so it's not human trafficking. Guess what? Consent doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, especially when you're dealing with young kids, because boys can be trafficked too. And when you think about my story, when I was giving the drugs to these young men who were on the streets in New Haven, Connecticut, they were teenagers too. When I'm giving these drugs to these young men and they're being told to sell the drugs by this older man, they were also being trafficked, but they didn't realize it either. But so, yeah, so trafficking you can consent and it still be trafficking. It can still be exploitation because, like I said in the beginning, when you're young, when you're vulnerable, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that you're being trafficked. You don't know that this person is using you. You don't know that you're a pawn in their game, so to speak. And so, yeah, and it doesn't always involve kidnapping. That's another myth. It doesn't have to involve kidnapping and being brought across international borders. It doesn't have to involve being snatched into a white van and being taken. We've seen a lot of you guys may know about the movie Taken with Liam Neeson. It doesn't always look like that. So it doesn't have to mean kidnapping. So that ties into the whole movement and ability to leave thing. This is not just people in chains and basements. And so a lot of times when we see the imagery surrounding human trafficking awareness, you might see, the a person that looks like they're in distress. Another myth. The human trafficking, a person who is being human trafficked doesn't always look like they're in distress. Sometimes they look like they are living their best life. And a lot of times that's a coping mechanism, but also the trafficker is being very crafty and very manipulative and being very, very smart about how they present that person to the public. In public, it looks like everything is great. Everything looks like it, like they're showered with gifts. They're showered with all of the material possessions and they have money and life looks great, but they can be trapped in their own home. A trafficker can be a husband who's trafficking his wife. A trafficker can be a mom who's selling their child for drugs. A trafficker can be a parent who has their child panhandling on the street, forcing them to beg for money and bringing that money back home. So, okay, how do we recognize the signs? Really quickly, it can be physical. You know, you can see physical signs with like bruises and injuries. It can be malnutrition, it can be exhaustion, but you don't always see the physical signs. But those can be some of the signs. Behavioral, people that tend to be fearful, submissive, avoiding eye contact, afraid to talk to people. That can be another sign. Social, the social signs, being isolated, scripted responses, having no control over their ID, their passport, their driver's license, things like that. I'm going to give you guys a quick example. I have a few minutes before we go into the Q&A session, but I'm going to give you a few examples. Well, I'll give you one. I heard the story about a young girl who was getting her hair done in a hair salon. And this was a teenage girl, and the salon owner noticed that the young girl was sitting there for over an hour without a cell phone. And she thought it was odd because she thought, what teenager is going to sit in a salon for over an hour and don't have a cell phone? Because she also noticed that the man who brought her was standing outside and looked aggressive or looked intimidating. You know, he had this power, this towering presence. So she thought it was odd that this older man brought this teenage girl and she's sitting there, she's quiet, she's not talking, and she does not have a cell phone. So because it looked odd to her, she said she waited until the young girl went to the bathroom. And I believe she wrote out a note and left it there so that the girl can see, like, if you need help, call this number or let me know if you need help, something to that effect. Which brings me to how you can help, how you can respond safely. Because a lot of times we see these things going on, we feel something's not right, we feel that something's off, but we don't know what we can do. We don't know how we can step in. Well, some of the ways that you can step in is by not putting the person who's possibly being trafficked in more danger. So absolutely do not try to step in and do anything on your own. Don't confront a trafficker directly. Don't put the person in more danger. Contact the local authorities. Contact professionals. Contact the hotline. Do whatever you can do safely from a distance and keeping your eye on that potential victim. You can support them by keep it monitoring the situation, whether it's having your cell phone on and recording discreetly, whether it's taking note of the environment, just, writing a quick description of what that person looks like so that a sketch can be drawn later. And so another way that we can respond safely is even when you're not in an environment where you're seeing it happen in real life, in real time, so to speak, but I know that this is an issue in my community. It's everywhere, number one. So it's an issue in all of our communities. But if you're wondering, what can I do to help? How can I get involved? This thing is really bothering me. It's keeping me up at night. I think about it all the time. Well, being on platforms like this, in webinars like this, spreading the word about webinars like this and different opportunities to become educated, to become more aware. This is how you can help, becoming educated. Also, how you can help is being able to join forces with organizations who are doing the work. Joining forces can mean whether you support monetarily, whether you volunteer your time, whether you volunteer your efforts, whether you bring your expertise, whether you just ask, how can I help? Where is the greatest need? Maybe you're a social worker, maybe you're a counselor, maybe you're a person who might want to get trained in how to help, how to be a therapeutic resource for survivors. And prevention to me is the biggest factor. Helping young women, young boys, women, men, children, whoever, to have helping to prevent them ever being trafficked in the first place. To me, that is the best outcome. And what we can do is going into schools, whether it's our organizations going into schools, whether it's talking to our own children, our nieces, our nephews, educating the younger generation about having self-esteem, having confidence in themselves, knowing the signs of predatory behavior, knowing what's out there, having the difficult, uncomfortable conversations, helping them to understand that secrecy doesn't have to exist. Secrecy doesn't mean that you're bonding with somebody or that it makes you close with someone or makes you special. But no, secrets are bad. They're not meant to keep you safe. They're meant to harm you. Silence is a killer. Having those one-on-one conversations in their language. How we're talking now may not be how we talk when we talk to our younger people and educating them. And also adults need to have this conversation as well. Because like I said, it wasn't until I was 36 that I was aware that what I experienced was human trafficking. So I want to leave you with this. Everyone in here, everyone in this call can make a difference. Like you might feel insignificant. You might wonder, how can I make an impact? How can I make a global impact? You are making an impact just by being present. And what you do next is going to be key. You can share this information, like I said, in one-on-ones, or you can share this information with your networks. You can put information out on social media. You can just be a present. You can be present in so many different conversations as you see them taking place. Join in, join the fight, because I guarantee you, you absolutely can make a difference. If you listen to this and a light bulb went off in your mind and you said, wait a minute, I think what I went through was also trafficking. Or maybe it wasn't necessarily human trafficking, but it's something that was traumatic. Maybe something you heard was a trigger. I want you to know that there's help, there are resources. You absolutely can get therapy. You can absolutely reach out. My information, I'm going to provide it in just a moment, but you can reach out to me. You can reach out to the host of this great webinar, I'm sure, and they can please reach out to them so that they can get the information to you. There's resources online, there's hotlines that you can go to. So you're not alone. You're not alone. And so I leave you with this. You absolutely can outlive the labels. You can outlive the limitations. You can go on to do great things. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to learn more about this and listening to my story, because it literally can save lives. So please share the information that you learned today. So how you can reach me? You can reach me on all social media platforms at Hear Mary Speak. You can also reach me by email at info@marykholmes.com. So info@marykholmes.com. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you all. I'm going to put it back into the hands of the host at this time.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. That's impactful. That has stirred something in me. And I know that it has stirred something in many people. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your story. I love listening to you. I love watching you. I love following you. And this today has provided something, a different perspective of you that I didn't know. It's one thing to follow people on social media and to interact with them at a certain level, but you've shared from your heart. And thank you so much for opening up. A lot of us here, I know that we have been through our stories, and by you sharing your life story, I want you to know that you've empowered us to be able and to be free and to know that it's okay to share our stories as well and to own them, because that's empowering. And thank you so much for that. I have my own personal questions, but I want to give it to the audience. If anyone has a question, you can feel free to just unmute and ask the question, or you can put it in the chat. We only have a couple of minutes. So yeah, let's get to it. Anyone has a question? Okay, it looks quiet. I just want to make sure that I'm not closing anyone out. Um, Okay, so thank you so much. Maybe people are thinking about the message that you've shared today. But one of the things that I wanted to share, to ask you personally is because once you've gone through something that really nearly destroyed your life, nearly killed you, it's very difficult to begin to open up to people. It's very difficult to even share with your family, even the closest friends, because of the labels that you talked about and the judgments that you talked about. What are the steps that led you to sharing your story publicly the way you're sharing today? Because I know that it doesn't happen. I went through my life at some point, and it was very hard, very, very difficult to just open up and share because I was like, I'm gonna be judged. I was like, they're gonna look at me really bad because I've been in this situation for a long time. And also a lot of abusers, like you said, they want to put a public face and they want to show that everything is under control, they are good persons. They put on a facade that is not what they are. And so sometimes as a survivor, when you're talking about and sharing your story, people don't really believe you. So I just want to learn from you, what are the steps that you took and what led you to that, building trust in people and being able to share your story?
Yeah, that's a great question because I took note of the fact that most of the times, if not, I think every time I speak, I get that question in a setting where like I'll come off the stage and then there'll be women who either want to take a picture or and they take the opportunity to ask me something. But usually it'll be someone who's gone through something. They say, I went through what you went through, but I'm afraid to talk about it. I'm afraid of what my family is going to think. Of how did you get the courage? And the way you asked it, I just really appreciate it because it opens up the door to talk about not just how I found that internal courage, because I believe it was God that just one day gave me this ministry of transparency and gave me the boldness to talk about it. So ultimately, yes, I know that it came from God. It came from a deep spiritual place. And but a lot of times people don't know how to tap into that, or maybe they have a different faith background or whatever, or maybe they haven't, maybe they don't have a relationship with God. And so sometimes you need to know, like, okay, how can I find that courage if I don't have that what you had at that time, which was this opportunity to get spiritually awakened and emboldened, so to speak. Because I can tell you the exact day that I got that boldness, like it was like this, it was like everything changed that day. I knew I can talk, I can open up my mouth because prior to that, I was afraid to look people in the eye. I was afraid to talk to people. I would get super nervous around people. I would shake, I would sweat. I just didn't have the ability to be around people without having all of these triggers going off. So yeah, absolutely. I was spiritually like just emboldened to be able to talk and speak. But the other things that happened was God gave me a great support system. So my husband was very encouraging. He helped me to be able to speak with an unapologetic mindset. He helped me to understand that he would not only would not he wouldn't judge me, but he helped me to understand that people needed to hear the realness of what I went through. They needed to hear the raw, gritty part of my story. And so it gave me that confidence that I wasn't going to embarrass him or make him look bad, so to speak. So that helped me. And then I didn't go to all of my family. And please, those of you who have this issue where you're worried about your family judging you, or your family not liking what you talk about, um, really be wise about who in your family you can talk to, or if you need to talk to anyone in your family prior to opening up, because you don't need their permission at all. This is your story. You don't need their permission. You don't need their green light, so to speak. All you need is your story, which it's you. It happened to you. It didn't happen to them. Whatever happened to them happened to them. But what happened to you is your story. You are the owner of that narrative. So you can tell your story without their permission. But I wanted to talk to one of my sisters prior to opening up. And I just wanted to kind of gain her perspective and talk to her first because that gave me a little bit more ease about, okay, I'm not crazy. You saw what I saw too, right? Like it gave me that extra boost of like, I know I'm not having false memories. I'm not, exaggerating, so to speak. So I went to her and I had the conversation. I said, I'm about to tell this story. I'm about to write this book. And she said, tell it all. I remember this. I remember that. And so that encouraged me. But you don't have to do that. But if you feel you need to do that, find someone that you can trust, someone that you know is not going to use that opportunity to judge you or make you feel bad or try to silence you. Another thing with support systems is the professional support systems, your counseling, whether it's professional counseling, whether it's pastoral counseling from your pastor, your church leaders, whether it's community leaders, being able to get that professional backdrop of counseling and getting the healing through that. Because I truly believe that the confidence came when I was healed from the things that I had gone through. Once I healed from the trauma, I could talk about it and it didn't sting. It didn't hurt me anymore. It didn't control it didn't take over my mind. It didn't take me back to where I was. It didn't set me back mentally. So knowing that you have healed, doing the healing first, that's going to absolutely give you the confidence and the ability to be able to speak up and speak out about what you've gone through. And one last resource that I had really was just being able to have my business coaches. This might not seem obvious, or it might not seem like the obvious resource, so to speak. But I had business coaches I had a business coach that I had hired, and then that led me to also hiring a speaking coach, which helped me to understand how to tell my story, how to tell the story, but also tell it in a way where the audience doesn't have to comfort me, so to speak, but the audience can receive from me and not feel as if I'm just pouring out over them and letting that be my therapy, so to speak, from the stage. But how to tell my story in an impactful way that calls people to action, but also helps people understand that there is hope, giving that hope. So my coaches absolutely helped me to be able to develop my voice and find my voice. So I hope that answers the question in a very roundabout way, because I feel like what may work for some may not work for others, but maybe one or two of these tips may help you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate. I just wanted to read the questions in the chat. Peter just said, very eye-opening and inspiring presentation. Thank you. And then we have Lindsay who says, how do you manage the emotional toll of working with survivors? And Shamika says, what can communities and churches do to help prevent trafficking?
Great questions. Okay. So hi, Lindsay. Lindsay's amazing. Lindsay asked, how do I manage the emotional toll of working with survivors? Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, I believe this is why God had me work in corporate law, in corporate tax. It's like you need to balance out your life. Balance is really, it's not a real, to me, it's not real. You really can't balance things perfectly, but balance in the sense that he knew that I needed something outside of the work of working with survivors, working in trauma informed environments. I needed something outside of that to kind of give me that balance of doing something that does not weigh me down emotionally. When you're dealing with tax law, there is nothing emotional about it. I think the only emotional toll that it might take on me is just like, all right, I'm coming home and I need to get some sleep. I need to rest. I need to woosah. I need to relax, relate, release. Um, so yeah, I needed to work in an environment that was not emotionally charged. You're dealing with just, black and white, numbers, research, boom. And when I come home, I leave the job on the computer. So that absolutely helps me to be able to manage the emotional toll because you can't do it 24/7. You have to, you can't pour from an empty cup. You cannot pour when you are completely drained, completely depleted. There's no way that you can help everybody and you yourself are a mess. You yourself are drained. You yourself you're falling apart. So I have to take care of my body. I have to take care of my mind. I have to take care of my emotions. I have to tend to my self-care. I have to do things outside of this world that, the world of inspiring and bringing hope and all of that stuff. I absolutely find ways to live life and enjoy life. So yes, the other question, how can communities and churches, what can they do to help prevent trafficking? With communities and churches hosting platforms like this, being able to bring in survivor leaders, and when I say survivor leaders, it's people who have lived experience in this area, talking about their stories, shedding light on it, and then bringing in the uncommon stories because not everybody's story is what you see in the news. And we can also help to have programs and also trainings for the church and for leaders in the community, trainings that bring more awareness